We're going to hear from Stephany Santiago, who will present her timely project studying the effects of distance learning on families and young children.
So I titled my project, The Effects of Distance Learning on Local Families of Young Children. And when Jeannie and I first started, Jeannie's my mentor, when we first started talking about this project, we were sort of not thinking about the future and what would happen after. So it was interesting how now we have to sort of, well, a lot of younger kids have to go back to remote learning instead of to classes because of what's going on. But let me go ahead and start. Okay. So in the spring 2020, a lot of children and schools were asked to do remote learning. And they were giving a schedule which confused a lot of teachers, parents, students, and well, everyone, just because nobody was prepared for this. And that affected the way children were learning. And I sort of just wanted to focus on local homes back in Mountain View and sort of see the differences in socioeconomic status and the language they speak at home. So some of the effects were internet problems. From the research and sort of interviews, I interviewed a few psychologists and a few teachers about the problems, and a lot of them stressed that students were having internet problems, which is really common because obviously everybody was using Zoom and a lot of different sources online. And also there was a huge effect on students because some of them couldn't concentrate or their parents couldn't be home and just sort of be there to be a support system and just sort of show them how a computer works, especially if they're younger. If they're younger, they definitely need a parent there just because they're small. And students with disabilities also had to face huge effects just because some of them were getting help in school, and then once they weren't in school, they were left sort of like, well, not alone, but families were having difficulty just sort of interacting with the teacher and sort of being able to communicate. So over the summer, I got to tutor a little boy with autism, and the parent talked to me about her concerns, and she was sort of telling me that she didn't know English, so it was really hard for her to just communicate with the teacher and get help for her child, just because she also had to work. So there was also financial problems, and it was just really interesting to hear her perspective from other people's perspective. And so I decided to I created 2 surveys, one in English and one in Spanish. We got a total of 38 responses, and they were mostly pre-K and kindergarten responses. Some of them were middle school and high school, but remote learning does sort of, one of the parents on the survey said that remote learning falls heavily on parents depending on grade level. So middle schoolers and high schoolers sort of had it easier just because they knew how to use a device. They didn't really need their parent there. And it was definitely harder for the younger ones. And also a lot of the Spanish survey responses said that, again, language was a huge issue just because they didn't really know how to send an email to the teacher, or they were just confused as to what was going on. And also they did mention that hiring private tutors was not an option because they were struggling financially. And yeah. So in the survey, I wanted to focus on socioeconomic status. So I decided to create a bar graph. And this was one of the survey questions: areas that remote learning has affected your family. And what I noticed was that for the Spanish speaker survey, financially was way higher than for English speakers. And I think that a lot of them said they were low income, so that's why it's pretty high. And a lot of them said that they were affected socially and emotionally because students were stressed, parents were stressed, teachers were stressed, and socially because a lot of the parents really just wanted their kids to just interact with children because they're children and they need to have fun and do things children do. A lot of the differences, well, four of the main differences that I saw specifically in the surveys were internet access, device access. There was a lot of issues with devices, and private tutors, language barrier was also a huge one of them. And a lot of them did sort of talk about how parent involvement is huge and how having that communication with the teacher is really the foundation of learning, and just sort of, because if the parent is present and the parent is communicating with the teacher, then the student can have, let's say if they're having internet issues, if the parent is sort of talking to the school and working something out, then maybe it might be easier for the child to receive that help and work it out. And some additional help that in the survey, there was a question that said, any additional help that you could find useful? And a lot of them said that distance learning guides would be helpful, just because, like I said in the beginning of, well, at the end of March when quarantine started happening and they sort of had to tell everybody to study online, everything was rushed. So obviously, I'm pretty sure that now all the schools are prepared and are giving out distance learning guides, and a lot of schools are also providing tech help. My little sister goes to Grand Middle School, and they check their computers, and if they need to change their computers or just see if there's any technical difficulties, they'll take care of it. And internet access, I heard that Crandon was giving out these little box devices that would help them with internet. And again, as a whole, I feel like from this project, I understood more how families and teacher communication is really the key, just because if families are talking with schools and just sort of helping each other out, then it makes it easier for the student. Thank you.